Go. At this time, the children are released to Children's Church. Hey, good morning. Good morning. For whatever reason, I'm very nervous today. But you know what? That's okay. You'll forgive me if I compare everything to jumping out of airplanes, but they say the day you're not afraid to jump out of an airplane is the day you should stop jumping. And I think probably the same thing goes for preaching. And if you don't like listening to me preach, then you can just pray for me as I preach. With that, let's get started. If you have your Bibles, turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Now, I don't know the demographics of this church perfectly. I don't know if there's any old Western film fans amongst us, or if I am the sole fan. Maureen, do you like Westerns at all? Oh, good. Our friendship was on a precipice. I saved it. Yeah. I like old Western movies. If any of you are fans of old Western films, you've undoubtedly seen John Ford's The Searchers. It's one of his most epic Western films that he's ever made. If you're not familiar with the film, which judging by the looks here, many of you are not, your loss, okay, your loss. It's about a man named Ethan Edwards. He's played by John Wayne, and he embarks on this epic search to find his niece who's been kidnapped. The film is actually inspired by a novel of the same name by Alan LeMay, who was himself inspired by real-life events of a family living on the Texas frontier. Throughout the film, Edward just goes on this arduous, epic journey in search for his niece who's been kidnapped, and he faces just a myriad of dangers and trials and challenges. As the film develops, Edwards becomes incredibly hardened by his trip, by his search, his quest. And he actually becomes so hardened by this search that near the end of the film, he struggles to really know what the best course of action is. He struggles to know how to make the right decisions. Now, you and I will likely never travel through the Western frontier looking for a kidnapped family member. But we face difficult journeys nonetheless. And when our journey starts to get a little bit harder, it becomes a lot more difficult to make the right decisions, to be able to choose the right course of action. It's hard to know when to keep searching, or maybe even what to search for. It's hard to know when to give up. It's hard to know as we journey what to keep, what to throw away, what to tear, and what to mend. Fortunately, God's word provides the answers for these questions. If you're just joining us, we've been going through Ecclesiastes verses 1 through 8 as a church family, and it's divine wisdom, Holy Spirit-inspired wisdom that provides us with understanding for the times and the seasons of our lives under the ultimate, supreme, and perfect sovereignty and timing of God. And today we're going to focus our attention specifically on verse 6 in the beginning there of verse 7. There's a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend. What does God's word have to say about this? What does this mean for God's people? Well, as far as searching is concerned, there's a time to search our hearts. There's a time to search our hearts, or rather, ask God to search our hearts. David writes in Psalm 139, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise, you perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my laying down. You are familiar with all my ways. And at the end of this psalm, David concludes in this prayer. He says, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. That word offensive actually in the original Hebrew is the word otsev. It actually means pain, sorrow, wickedness, or an idol. That's what David's praying. You see, we have patterns of thought. We have patterns of speech that we take part in every single day, and we're not even aware of it. And you know what? Some of those patterns are not very good. Some of them aren't very good. Some of them actually are hindering our walk with God, and we're not even aware of it. So what are we to do? Pray as David prays. Ask God to search our hearts, to reveal if there's any offensive, any painful, any wicked, any idolatrous way in us that we're not even aware of, to reveal it to us, to lead us to repentance. There's a time to search our hearts. God's word also makes it clear that there's a time to search for wisdom. Ecclesiastes, as I hope you all are aware by now, it's part of the wisdom genre of the Old Testament Hebrew writings. Proverbs is another book that's entirely dedicated to imparting wisdom to God's people. Near the beginning of Proverbs chapter 2, the writers of Proverbs says, my son or my daughter, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding, indeed, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, and if you look for it as for silver and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Understand, this is not some random pulled out piece of scripture emphasizing God's people's need for wisdom. No, time and time again, the Bible affirms the need for wisdom amongst God's people. Just a few chapters later, Proverbs 4:7, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. I love that. I love that. The beginning of wisdom is this: get it. Get wisdom. And pay attention to the second half of that verse. Though it costs all you have, get understanding. Okay, so we know we need wisdom. But where do we begin searching for it? Well, for that answer, you got to go actually to the very beginning of Proverbs. Proverbs 1. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Whether you're 10, 20, 35, 50, 80 plus, whatever you are, whatever age or season of life you're in, don't ignore our need for godly wisdom. It's something we need at every phase of life. Seek wisdom in the fear of the Lord. What does that mean? It means, first and foremost, it means that intelligence is not the same as wisdom. The smart and the simple can equally be fools and equally be made wise. What does that look like? Well, it looks like knowing who we are, key in on this now, knowing who we are in relation to who God is. We just touched on this a few weeks ago. Beginning to really understanding who we are necessitates that we begin understanding who God is. And the fear of the Lord leads us to understand that we're messed up, that we don't have it all together, that we need a Savior. It looks like making ourselves wise through the study of God's word. You know, seminary's a great thing. I highly recommend it if you're going to become a pastor. But you know, the fact of the matter is, most of what I know about God's word, I'm going to let you know the secret, okay? It's just spending time in God's word. If you're reading a translation that you don't understand, get a different translation. We live in America. And Marcia Chia convicted me in a very positive way of how many materials for the church we have available to us. If you don't understand the translation you're reading, get a different one. I would be happy to guide you on to that. Godly wisdom is in here. And whatever our IQ, it's available to you and it's available to me. We can be wise. It also looks like surrounding yourself with wise, godly people. You learn a lot just by being around wise people. I encourage you to do that as well. There's a time to search, but there's a time to give up as well. That might sound a little strange to you because there are several verses in the New Testament that call on God's people to persevere, to endure. How on earth then can we call to give up anything? Well, I think we get a picture of that in Acts 16. Paul and his companions traveled throughout the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the province of Asia. When they came to the border of Mysia, they tried to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. So they passed by Mysia and went down to Troas. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." After Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. If we're not careful, we can read through Acts 16 too quickly and miss something very important. What was Paul planning to do? Well, he was planning to go preach the gospel in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. That's a good thing to want to do. Paul and his ministry friends were preparing what, to all of us, from our perspective, would seem like a really good plan. But it wasn't God's plan. There's a time to give up. Specifically, there's a time to give up our plans. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." The church struggled with this. I believe probably the church struggles with it now. James, writing to the church in chapter 4, says, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there and carry on business and make money." Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. Understand this. It's possible to be doing a good thing and have it be the wrong thing if it's not what God desires for you. Say that one more time. It's possible to be doing a good thing and have it be the wrong thing if it's not what God desires for you. Now, if we really grasp that, that's a little terrifying. It is to me. What are we supposed to do? Well, I would put this to you. Have plans. Have plans. But don't be fully committed to them. Be fully committed to God. Proverbs 3:6, "In all your ways submit to him," that is God, "and he will make your paths straight." There's a time to search, there's a time to give up, there's a time to keep and throw away. There's a time to keep what is sacred. There's a time to keep what is sacred. I love Proverbs 26:4-5. "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes." Okay. How are we to understand this proverb, let alone apply it to our lives? I think we understand it and then we apply it in light of what Jesus says in Matthew 7. Jesus says, "Do not give to dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." Not every person is ready to hear the truth of God. As a matter of fact, some are far more ready to scorn it, to mock it, to trample it, and to trample you. How then do we find the solution then between this and the call to make disciples? Matthew 28, or to be ready with an answer, 1 Peter 3:15. How do we reconcile those things? Well, the short answer is it's by God's wisdom. By God's wisdom. Again, in James, pay attention to this now, because there are very few times in the New Testament where God says, if you ask for it, you're going to get it. But this is one of those times. In James 1:5, God's word tells us, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, we can be given wisdom, but you know what? There's a catch. You got to use it. You got to use it. There's a time to keep what's sacred. You know, when I was in the Army, I met some of the very best men I've ever known. I've also met some of the very worst. And, you know, it gets out pretty quick if you're a Christ follower, even if at that point in your life you're not a great one. And you know what? There were times and there were situations where if I had answered them, I would have become a fool. And there are times and situations where there is young men desperately seeking to know God. How do you know when to speak up, when to be quiet? Ask God for wisdom. He gives generously to all. There's a time to keep what is sacred, and there's also a time to keep discipling the weaker brother, the weaker sister. In Acts 15, we read about how sometime later Paul said to Barnabas, let us go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we preached the word of the Lord and see how they're doing. Barnabas wanted to take John, also called Mark, with them, but Paul did not think it wise to take him because he had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not continued with them in the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. Barnabas took Mark and sailed for Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and left commended by the believers to the grace of our Lord. Such a sharp disagreement. John Mark fell out, and Paul said, you're done. You're done. And Barnabas did not see it that way. If you follow up, though, in 2 Timothy 4, Paul's nearing the end of his ministry, and it seems that Barnabas's investment came to fruition. In 2 Timothy 4, Paul's writing to Timothy, he says, do your best to come to me quickly. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you because he's helpful to me in my ministry. California's Napa Valley is renowned for its vineyards. But you know, the journey from vine to wine, or really from vine to anything else you want to do with grapes, is a long, long process. I actually didn't know that until I looked it up this week. The first year that the vintner plants, he plants a shoot. Plants shoots of vines rather than seeds because they yield the best harvest. At the end of the growing season, he cuts them back. The year passes, the second year passes, and he cuts them back again. Third year, finally, you'll see some grapes. But serious vintners don't harvest those ones. They actually leave them. It's not until year 4 that vintners can bring any kind of a harvest in. And if, by the way, you are harvesting those grapes to make wine, you've got another 3 to 4 years before you ever taste it. We're talking a 7 to 8 year commitment here. In fact, most vineyards in Napa Valley won't even reach a break-even point on their investment until the 15th or 18th year. Now, most of us, man, we like quick results. This is America. I want it now. And there's a time and a place for that. But you know what? That's not how discipleship works. That's not how discipleship works. Discipleship requires a venture's mindset. It really does. A lot of time, a lot of effort, and a far-reaching expect of return. You know, Jesus' time with the apostles throughout the Gospels, it's one marked by the apostles constantly failing. And yet Jesus sticks with them. He sticks with them. When necessary, he rebukes them, but he also teaches them. He encourages them. He prays for them. He discipled them. Yes, it absolutely takes the work of the Holy Spirit. It also takes patient, forbearing discipleship. Christians don't become strong followers of Christ overnight. God can do anything he wants to do, but God typically lets things work in the systems he's already created. And the system that we have is that for the most part, Christians don't become strong, solid, rock steady disciples of Christ like that. It takes a lot of discipleship. If we want to see this church grow in Christ, it is absolutely going to take the work of the Holy Spirit. But you know, it's also going to take a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of faithful discipleship. Don't write off followers of Christ when they fail. God doesn't, for which I am incredibly grateful. Instead, come alongside them, teach them, encourage them, pray for them, and if necessary, rebuke them. Have a venture's mindset when it comes to discipleship. There's a time to keep, and there's also a time to throw away. There's a time to throw away that which corrupts and destroys. Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. We see the disciples in the early church carrying this out in Acts 19. Many of those who believed now came and openly confessed what they had done. A number who had practiced sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. When they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to 50,000 drachmas, which is approximately a day's wage. In this way, the word of the Lord spread widely and grew in power. You don't have to put up your hands if you don't want to, but have any of you ever put yourselves on a super strict diet? Have any of you guys ever done that? Maybe you did it because you wanted to lose weight, or maybe you discovered you had some kind of a food allergy, and whatever your reason, you're going on this diet. What's the first thing most of us do? We go through the pantry, we go through the refrigerator, and we gather up all the stuff we know we're not supposed to have, and we either throw it out or we give it away. There we go. Either way, we get rid of it. Why do we pull it out of our fridges? Why do we pull it out of our pantries? Well, we're committed. We want to lose weight, or we don't want to get sick again. We want our bodies to perform at the very best they're capable of. And the same goes for our spiritual lives as well. If there's items or if there's habits we possess that corrupt and destroy, it's time to throw them out. It could be a book, it could be a movie, it could be a website, a social platform. I have no idea. Might be a place you hang out. It might be something that is of incredible monetary value to others, but you know by the revelation of the Holy Spirit of God, you know that it's hurting your walk with God. Throw it out. Just throw it out. There's a time to keep and throw away. There's also a time to tear and to mend. There's a time to tear down destructive behavior. Galatians 2 gives us a picture of that. Paul's writing to the church in Galatia, and he says, when Cephas, or Peter, came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. The other Jews joined him in this hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas, the guy who labored long with Mark, even Barnabas was led astray. When I saw that they were not acting in line with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all, "You are a Jew, yet you live like a Gentile and not like a Jew. How is it then that you force Gentiles to follow Jewish customs?" Before the introduction of the horse into North America, Native Americans hunted, Plains tribes rather, of Native Americans hunted buffalo in a variety of ways. But the most successful of those techniques for harvesting buffalo was to do what was called a buffalo jump. And really what it is it's just stampeding a herd right over a cliff. There's actually there's an iconic location of this hunting technique that can actually be found in Buffalo Jump State Park, just a few miles west of Great Falls, Montana. The park features this mile-long sandstone cliff where for hundreds of years Native Americans would herd the herds off over to the cliff and then harvest them down at the bottom. It was evidently incredibly successful because even today there are compressed remnants of buffalo skeletons that measure up to 18 feet thick. It's incredible. Why are you bringing that up? Well, for the same reason that I would ask, why did Paul confront Peter to his face? Because Peter was leading a herd of Christians right off a heretical cliff. Right off a heretical cliff, not in truth with the gospel. And that is a serious thing. You don't have to take my word for it. Jesus says so. In Matthew 18, Jesus says, "If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea." It wasn't that Peter was simply wrong with regards to living out the truth of the gospel, is that he was actually leading several others with him and not living out the truth of the gospel. That's why Paul confronted Peter publicly. It's uncomfortable, but there are times. There are times to confront a brother or a sister publicly, namely when they're leading fellow brothers and sisters in acute heresy. Now, if we're confronting a single solitary brother or sister who's been trapped in sin, follow Christ's commands in Matthew 18. Go to them one-on-one. Point it out to them just between the two of you. If they won't listen, take a couple of other solid brothers or sisters along. If they still won't, tell it to the church. And if they won't listen to the church, then treat them as you would a pagan. If you know a brother or sister caught up in destructive behavior, headed right off a cliff, prayerfully, lovingly, humbly, and scripturally tear that down. James writes in James 5, he says, "My brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins." There's a time to mend. There's a time to tear, and there's a time to mend. There's a time to mend wrongs done to a brother or to a sister. Again, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says in Matthew 5, he says, "Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift." There's a time to mend wrongs done to a brother and a sister. There's also times to mend feuds in the church. I've said this before, but just for good measure, I'll say it one more time. Never forget that the early church were people redeemed, saved, sanctified, but they were people. And you know what? They had problems then, just like we have problems now. And in Paul's letter to the church in Philippi, it's actually his most upbeat letter to any of the churches that he writes. But even so, there in Philippians 4, he writes to a couple of ladies in the church who are feuding with each other. Near the end of his letter, he says, "Therefore, my brothers and sisters, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm in the Lord in this way, dear friends. I plead with Euodia, and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord." Yes, and I ask you, my true companion, help these women, since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers whose names are in the book of life. In his last major written work, German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer compares the human race to a bunch of porcupines that are huddling together on a cold winter's night trying to stay warm. Schopenhauer writes, "The colder it gets outside, the more we huddle together for warmth. But the closer we get to one another, the more we hurt one another with our sharp quills. And in the lonely night of Earth's winter, eventually we begin to drift apart and wander out on our own to freeze to death in our loneliness." Whoa. I'm glad I didn't read that yesterday at the FCA event. That might have been a little grim. Yeah, that's a grim picture. And this great thinker, this great philosopher, that was his conclusion. That's our only choice. No, it's not. No, it's not. Christ gives us an alternative. We can forgive each other from the pokes we receive. And thus we can stay together and we can stay warm. Now, if you're thinking this is a little bit of a follow-up to last week's sermon about embracing a brother and a sister, hey, you're right. It is. Why bring this up again? Because it's important. No, that's not just my opinion. That's what God's word teaches us. Jesus himself makes it clear that letting a wrong we've committed against a brother or a sister go uncorrected hinders our worship. It hinders our worship to God. Think about that. Please think about that. Failing to forgive and to reconcile with a brother or a sister in the faith with whom we've had a disagreement, it decreases the health and vitality of a church family. If there's a brother or a sister that has something against you, go make it right. Go make it right. Your worship, your gifts, your offerings to God are going to be hindered until you do. And if you're out of joint with a brother or a sister in the faith, go be of the same mind. In what? In the Lord. This is not a command to be best friends forever. This is a command to be in the same mind in the Lord. If you're already living a new life in Christ, there's a time to search. There's a time to search our hearts, to ask God to reveal if there's any offensive way in us. There's a time to search for wisdom. Praise God, intelligence is not wisdom. It's available to all of us. And all of us equally need it. There's a time to give up our plans. Have plans, but don't live and die to them. Live and die to God. There's a time to keep what's sacred. Don't become a fool by arguing like one. Don't give what's holy to pigs. Ask God for wisdom on when to share his treasures and when to keep them. I believe he'll do that for you. There's a time to keep discipling the weaker brother, the weaker sister. Don't write them off. Have a long-term investment strategy. There's a time to throw away that which corrupts and destroys. And there's a time to tear down destructive behavior. There's a time to mend wrongs done to a brother or a sister. There's a time to mend feuds. If if you are not yet living a new life in Christ, if you've not yet accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, this is the time to stop searching. This is the time to stop looking for something else besides God to fulfill you. Maybe you've looked to your career or to athletics or to finances or to your family, whatever it is you've been looking to. It's time to stop searching. It's time to now is the time to give up trying to be God, because you're not, and I'm not either. Now's the time to throw away all the things that you hoped would bring you meaning and fulfillment. Now's the time to tear away from the false gods, the idols, and the opiates that you've been worshiping. And now is the time to mend your broken relationship with God Almighty. Forsake these other gods, whatever they are. Be forgiven by God, through God, and the atonement made possible through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and follow him as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Let's close with a hymn. Everything Christ is doing even now.